वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुस्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नमोऽस्तुते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः। हरि ओम्। We'll spend a few minutes chanting Shri Krishna Sharanam Nama.
Shri
Okay, good morning, Sitaram everybody. It is wonderful to be back here and it is so nice to see you all this Sunday morning. We are on our final night of Mahabharata, not night, day. Final session of this great epic called Mahabharata. Mahabharata is the itihasa that presents to us life as it is. All the realities of life are presented to us with no quoting, with no nice words, as it is. You know, this is how the world is, this is how people are, this is how situations come to you in life, and we look at the reality of life, and we're supposed to learn through the Mahabharata how we're supposed to face our own mind, how we're supposed to face our karma, how we're supposed to face anything that comes to us in life. Last night we saw the story of Karna and how evident the law of karma is. In Ramayana, in Ramcharitmanas, there's that famous line that says, Karma pradhana bisva kariraka. Right? The law of karma is preponderant. Jo jasa karai, so tasa bhalu jaka. As you do, as you sow, so shall you reap. There's no escaping of the law of karma. We saw how Duryodhana, the head of the Kauravas, the wicked head of the Kauravas, he, along with every single other person on his side, except for 4 people, except for 3 people, were killed finally on the 18th day of the Mahabharata war, and the Pandavas were finally victorious. The Pandavas are representative of the good, noble, positive qualities in our mind, and the Kauravas represent all the negative tendencies in our mind. And so it is with the help of, or with the power of, our positive thoughts, our positive qualities, our positive vasanas, that we have to defeat the negative qualities that are there in our mind. And so finally, this victory has been achieved. The other thing that we saw just before we ended was how Bhagavan Shri Krishna had told Arjuna to get off his chariot that he was using for all of these days. And as soon as Arjuna got down when Arjuna got off the chariot, then as Bhagavan Krishna got off, and Hanumanji, who was sitting on the flag of Arjuna, he also flew off, that chariot went into flames. And that was the final act that was there to remind us that actually we have no idea how much we are being protected by the Lord. That chariot was only staying in one piece because of the presence of the Lord. And as soon as Bhagavan got off that chariot lost, and its purpose was over, that chariot went into flames. And so we're always all reminded of the fact that we have a purpose in this life, and as soon as that purpose is done, well, the thing that came to help us to do our purpose, that also goes away. So just like the chariot was burned at the end of the war, when our life purpose in this body is done, this body also goes up into flames just like the chariot. Now, Duryodhana was left to die on the battlefield in pain, in severe pain, because of all the adharma that he had done. And the Pandavas were victorious. I had also mentioned yesterday how sometimes it looks like, the Pandavas did adharma, they did things that were not right. But that is tantamount to, someone who is in the FBI and they're trying to expose some group that is doing wicked things. Is it not that sometimes that FBI will have to go undercover and pretend that he's a member of that gang and all those kind of things to be able to finally expose the gang? So he has to lie and say, I am faithful to you and this and that. And so sometimes for dharma to finally win in the end, you have to do things that may not apparently look like dharma. And that is why the Pandavas, to defeat the depth of adharma that was going on, they had to also do things in such a way that finally dharma would win in the end. But they never ever did anything that was remotely possibly considered out of line without Bhagavan Sri Krishna's direct advice and direct guidance. So they're never ones that thought of even transgressing dharma. It was only with Bhagavan Sri Krishna's guidance that they were able to maneuver the adharma in such a way that dharma wins finally. They weren't doing adharma, they were doing dharma in that scenario. But given the circumstances, the definition of dharma had to be modified in consideration of the greater good. So that is all we saw. Now, Bhagavan Krishna told the Pandavas that now that the war is over and you are victorious, the tradition is that the victors, those who are victorious, the winners, they go and they sleep in the camp of the ones they have defeated. And so the 5 Pandavas, along with Bhagavan Krishna's cousin and Bhagavan Krishna, they go now to sleep in the Kauravas' camp because they have won. There were 3 more people that were alive in the Kaurava army. Their names were Ashwathama, the son of the guru of both the Kauravas and the Pandavas, Kritavarma, who was actually from Bhagavan Krishna's army. He had given his army to the Kauravas, and Kripacharya, who was the first guru of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And they went and they saw Duryodhana. And Duryodhana had been defeated because Bhima, one of the Pandavas, had hit him with the mace on his thigh. And it is said that you're not allowed to strike below the waist when you're fighting with the mace. But circumstances called for Bhima to hit Duryodhana on the thigh. And so now these 3 are furious. They're very angry, and they say, these Pandavas, they hide behind the fact that they're doing dharma, but look at how much adharma they're doing. They don't understand. They don't also see the amount of adharma that they are doing. And so they say, we are going to avenge this wrong that was done to you. The war is not over. We are going to keep fighting. We're going to make sure all the Pandavas die. Duryodhana, the king, means the one who's fighting for the land, because of whom everyone fought. He has fallen. Technically the war is over. But these 3 say, no, it's not over, we're going to keep fighting for you. And at this point Duryodhana is happy. And he says, okay, I crown you, Ashwathama, as the commander-in-chief. 3 people remaining. And so now they go in their sadness to sit under a tree, and they're wondering what to do. Now starts the section called Sauptika Parva, the chapter called the Parva related to sleep, and you will see why. The 2, Kripacharya and Kritavarma, are exhausted from the day's battle, and so they fall asleep instantly. But this Ashwathama, son of Guru Dronacharya, he cannot sleep. His mind is so disturbed. He has still not gotten over the sorrow of the way his father was killed. And so he's sitting there and he's thinking and thinking what to do. And then he sees an owl coming in the middle of the night to a nest of crows. And these crows are asleep. And this owl, while the crows are asleep, comes and pecks at them and kills them while they're sleeping. And this gives Ashwathama an idea. And he wakes up Kripacharya and Kritavarma and he says, the only way we can defeat the Pandavas is if we go and we kill them now in their sleep. Totally against the laws of everything. And he says, let us go. And these 2 try to dissuade him and they say, no, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this, we can't do it. And he says, I'm going. I will be the one to slaughter. You just come and protect the tents so they can't escape. And so now the 3 of them go. And in the most despicable act that happens during the Mahabharata war, already so many heinous things have been done. This is the most despicable one that happens. Ashwathama goes and he kills every single one of the warriors that were remaining on the Pandava side. Drishtadyumna, brother-in-law of the Pandavas, was strangled to death. They were sleeping, remember? They wake up and in the middle of the night they're being killed with swords, they don't have their weapon, they don't have any protection, they're half asleep. They were slaughtered in their sleep. All of the remaining brothers-in-law of the Pandavas, all their sons who were alive were slaughtered in their sleep. And every single person on the Pandava side was killed. And then they set fire to those tents, and only one person was able to escape. And that person ran to go and tell the Pandavas, who were actually in the Kaurava camp. Remember, they were sleeping in the Kaurava camp, so they were not killed. These 5 Pandavas, Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Satyaki, Krishna's cousin. When this person comes and runs and tells what Ashwatthama has done, they cannot believe it. They have no words to say. They're in shock. But anyways, I'll tell you what happens then. First, these 3 are so happy that finally they've been able to defeat all of the Pandavas, and they run to Duryodhana and they tell Duryodhana what they've done. And Duryodhana is so happy that this has been accomplished. Imagine, huh? He's lying on the battlefield all alone, dying. Every minute he's suffering in pain, all alone. And he hears this news and he is so happy, and with great pride, he now drops his body. And Duryodhana is finally officially dead. And at the time that Duryodhana dies, the power that was given to Sanjaya to see what was happening on the battlefield, that also finished that moment. Now, the Pandavas cannot believe what this son of their guru has done. He's a Brahmana, son of a great guru, and he has gone and done this massacre at midnight. When Draupadi hears that her brothers were killed and her sons were killed, see, killing and losing family is a normal thing in war. So everyone was mentally, yes, it is a sad thing, but when you hear that your sons have died in battle, your brother has died in battle, your father has died in battle, that is different than hearing that your sons were slaughtered in their sleep, your brothers were slaughtered in their sleep. It is a completely different story. And Draupadi is so devastated and she's so angry. And she says, I will not eat until this Ashwatthama is dead, because what he has done is unforgivable. And they tell her, no, but Ashwatthama is Chiranjeevi, means he is one of the people who lives forever, so it's not possible to kill him. And she says, well, he has this gem on his head which gives him his power. If you can't kill him, I want you to go and bring that gem for me. But this Ashwatthama must suffer for what he has done. And she says, Bhima, you are the only one who can do this for me. And so she asks Bhima to go and bring this gem from Ashwatthama's head and to punish him. And so now Bhima goes behind Ashwatthama with full anger. And Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna know how powerful Ashwatthama is. And so they know that Bhima cannot defeat him on his own. And so now they go after Bhima to try and quell his anger and to try and face this Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama sees them coming, and Ashwatthama he's like, oh my god, these Pandavas are still alive. And he releases a weapon called the Brahma Shirsha Astra, and he says, may this world be Pandava-less, free from all Pandavas. And he sends it to them. And this Brahma Shirsha weapon is so powerful, it's about to kill every single remaining Pandava that's alive. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, you have to counteract this Astra. And so Arjuna happens to know the same Astra, and so he takes it out and he sends the same weapon to fight with this weapon that is being sent by Ashwatthama. If these two weapons collide, the world is going to end. That is such a powerful weapon. And so Naradji and Bhagavan Vedavyasa come, and with their power and their tapas, they stop these two weapons from colliding. And they say to them, look at what is happening to the world. You have to revoke your weapon. You have to tell the weapon to come back to you. You have to stop it from going forward. And so Arjuna listens, and Arjuna he revokes the weapon and he calls it back because he has the power to do so. Ashwatthama doesn't have the purity that is required to bring the weapon back. And so they're telling Ashwatthama, take back this weapon. And because he hasn't done enough tapas, and because he doesn't have enough purity, there's so much. Look at the slaughter that he just did. He doesn't have the capacity to withdraw this weapon. And he's like, well, I can't take this weapon back. And he says, if you are insisting that the Pandavas must survive, then I am going to direct this weapon, this astra, to all the unborn children of the Pandava lineage. And in that way, eventually the Pandavas will be removed. And that means that this astra is sent to the womb of Uttara. Uttara is the daughter-in-law of Arjuna, Abhimanyu's wife. Abhimanyu was murdered on the battlefield, and Uttara was pregnant. And so Bhagavan Sri Krishna gets angry, and he says, Ashwathama, this son of Abhimanyu is going to live. I am going to see to it that this weapon of yours is fruitless and it doesn't kill the son of Abhimanyu. The son of Abhimanyu will live in spite of this astra that you have sent. You watch me. And at this point, Bhagavan Krishna curses Ashwathama. He says, you are going to roam around this whole entire world, lonely, alone, in pain and regret, suffering in sorrow because of what you have done. He curses him he's going to live forever, but he's going to live in pain, not only internal pain, but physical pain as well. They take away his gem, and he is left to really suffer. And he curses him that he says, you will see this child rule, and all you'll be able to do is suffer. This is Bhagavan Sri Krishna's curse to this Ashwathama for what he did. You will be forever alone and miserable. And this gem is now taken and given to Draupadi, and Draupadi puts it in the crown of Yudhishthira. The other two, they run away in fear, Kripacharya and Kritavarma, because they realize that now, that's it. Nothing can be done. Everything is over. The worst possible thing has happened. Now, this burning of the Pandavas was a very painful thing, the remaining people in the camp. But there's a symbolism in that as well. What is the symbolism? Like I was saying, we have positive vasanas and negative vasanas, positive tendencies and negative tendencies. We're supposed to use all of our positive tendencies to defeat our negative tendencies. However, once the negative tendencies have been defeated, even the positive tendencies eventually have to be removed. Means we're supposed to transcend everything. We're supposed to transcend good and bad thoughts. On the spiritual journey, we're supposed to transcend every single thought that makes us feel like an individual. So in the final leg of our spiritual journey, before we become realized, we're supposed to give up the ego of having even those positive qualities. Once that is done, all that is left is the prarabdha karma of the body. Because a person is born with a certain set of karmas, and until all those karmas finish, the body cannot drop. A person may become realized, but until their karmas finish, the body will remain. And so the survival of the 5 Pandavas is symbolic of the prarabdha karma that our body still has to go through until the karma finishes, and then the body will finally drop. So this is one of the reasons, the symbolic reasons given for the burning of these remaining, the Upa-Pandavas they were called. The children of the Pandavas were called Upa-Pandavas. This was the symbolism that is given. But it is also, you don't necessarily need to see the symbolism to see the power and impact of that story that just came. Now comes the section in Mahabharata called the Stri Parva. The Stri Parva is, Stri means woman. It's the Parva, the section in Mahabharata where it is a very, very sad section. It is a section in the Mahabharata where all the women now lament the death of all of these warriors. And all the women go towards the battlefield, and as they're going with their hair open, with their heads down, crying, it is exactly a duplication of the scene of when Draupadi was going to the forest 14 years ago after what the Kauravas had done to her, after they had pulled her into the court with her hair and tried to disrobe her and all the humiliation, and she was looking there and thinking at that time that in 14 years after we are victorious in the war, every single one of these Kauravas' wives are going to look exactly how I am looking. And that is exactly what happened. And all the women were mourning, and even the Pandavas were so sad because all their people are dead. All their sons have been brutally murdered in this final act after the war. And now they have to go and they have to meet Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, their uncle and aunt. Dhritarashtra, who's currently sitting on the throne, they have to go and meet them. Bhagavan Sri Krishna knows that because of the tapas of Gandhari, Gandhari was the mother of Duryodhana, her husband Dhritarashtra was blind. And because Dhritarashtra was blind, she had said that she would blind herself, because if my husband can't see the world and enjoy it, then I shouldn't either. And so from the day she got married, she had blinded herself and deprived herself of seeing in the world. One time, for just a few moments, she had opened her blindfold, and that was to give Duryodhana's body invincibility. That is a different story. But apart from that, one moment where she had taken off her blindfold to use the power of her tapas to bless the body of Duryodhana to become invincible, apart from that, she hadn't seen the world for decades. And because of the power of her tapas, she was a very dangerous person. And when you've done tapas, you have the power to curse. And when you're angry, curses come out of you like anything. And so Bhagavan Krishna knew that Gandhari had this capacity and she could have cursed the Pandavas. So he goes now and he tries to pacify Dhritarashtra and Gandhari for the loss of all of their family. And he reminds them at that time that this war has happened because of their son Duryodhana. He reminds them that they could have stopped it, to try to bring some balance to their mind. Because when your sons have been killed, all you're thinking is, this person killed my son. You forget the reason for which they were killed is that they themselves brought the war upon everybody. So Bhagavan had gone and pacified them, and Gandhari was still angry. Even Bhagavan Vedavyasaji, who was the biological father of Dhritarashtra and the advisor to all of them, their guru, he said, don't be angry. This was your son's fault, and it has all happened as it ought to. So calm yourself down. So now Gandhari is calmed down, and all of the Pandavas go to Hastinapur, the kingdom, which they left 14 years ago, the day they were banished into exile unfairly. And so now they go into this kingdom and they go and meet Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. And Yudhishthira touches Dhritarashtra's feet and he apologizes for the war, and Yudhishthira and Dhritarashtra embraces him. He's his uncle. He's his chachu, right? That's the relationship. And then Bhima goes next. And before Bhima can go to embrace Dhritarashtra, Bhagavan Krishna says, wait. And there was a metal image of Bhima made by Duryodhana that he used to fight with every day. Duryodhana used to fight with this metal image of Duryodhana, of Bhima. And so Bhagavan Krishna went from in the palace and brought that metal image of Bhima, and that is what he put in front of Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra embraced that Bhima, the statue of Bhima. And when he embraced Bhima, he remembered the fact that Bhima is the one who killed every single one of his 100 children. And all the anger came back into Dhritarashtra, and full of anger, he literally strangled that Bhima that was in front of him, and he squashed him to death. Literally. Means this metal statue that was made, it was turned to powder because of the amount of anger that came through. The amount of strength that Dhritarashtra had literally just finished that statue of Bhima. And then with his anger let out, he felt really bad and he said, oh my God, what have I done? I have killed Bhima. And then Bhagavan Krishna said, no, Bhima is here. I knew your anger would come out. That was just the statue of Bhima that you have destroyed, but Bhima is still here. And so he embraces Bhima, and then all of the Pandavas one by one. Now Gandhari, they have to meet Gandhari. Before they meet Gandhari, Gandhari is still so hurt, so angry. And she says, I want to know from Bhima, how is it that you could have done such a wrong thing and hit Duryodhana on his thigh, which was against the rule of that Gada Yuddha, that fight of the mace. And Bhima looked at her and he said, you know, Mother Gandhari, the day that Duryodhana had humiliated Draupadi in the court, he touched his thigh, and I had vowed at that time, he touched his hand, that he said to Draupadi, come and sit here. That is a big insult to your sister-in-law. And he said that I had vowed at that time to break Duryodhana's thigh. If I had broken his thigh at that time, you would have not said that I was doing something wrong. But because Yudhishthira had stopped me and didn't allow me, I waited for the right time and then I did it. I waited for the right time and then I did it. So you wouldn't have thought it was wrong if I did it then. I was just fulfilling my vow. And she was pacified by that answer. Then she said, but what about Dushasan? You, my second son, you ripped his chest and you drank his blood like an animal. And Bhima said, no. I had taken a vow on that day too. Dushasan had tried to disrobe my wife, and he pulled her hair and all kinds of things. And I had vowed at that time in anger to drink his blood. But on the battlefield, I did not let that blood go beyond my lips. I spat it out. I didn't actually drink it. And then Gandhari was a bit more cool. Then one by one they go and do pranams to her. And when Yudhishthira does pranams to her, you know, even though she's blindfolded, there's like a little gap between her blindfold. And so from the bottom of her eyes, she sees Yudhishthira's fingertips. And the anger is still there. And the anger from her eyes goes and it burns Yudhishthira's fingertips and they turn blue. And Arjuna sees that and he gets scared and he runs and hides behind Krishna. This Gandhari is powerful, you know. Anyways, now everybody makes up and all of that, and they go to this Kurukshetra battlefield to see all of the people that they have lost, all of their loved ones. And now Gandhari's curse had passed over them just like the Narayana Astra. When you surrender to it with humility, it passes over you. So all these Pandavas had, with humility, surrendered to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, and they were fine. Oh, before they went, they met Kunti, their mother. And there was so much pain that was shared between the meeting of them. And finally they headed to the battlefield. Now Draupadi is crying, and Gandhari is crying, and Kunti is crying, and everybody is crying because this battlefield was, it looked like Naraka. It looked like hell. There was blood everywhere. There were heads of soldiers chopped off everywhere. There were dead animals. 18 days of killing on this battlefield. You can imagine millions of people killed on this battlefield, what it would have looked like. And so Gandhari, actually, because of her tapas, without physical eyes, she can see the destruction on the battlefield. And again, all of her anger comes back. And at this time, she turns to Bhagavan Krishna and she says, Krishna, you could have stopped this war. It was because of your indifference to this war that this whole thing has happened and all my children have died. I curse you that just like you watched my family kill each other, in the same way in 36 years, your entire family is going to kill each other just like my family killed each other. And you're going to lose your entire family by an internal fight. Bhagavan Shri Krishna looks at Gandhari Ma and he tells her, he accepts the curse very happily, and he says, you know, I was wondering how this family of mine, which is supposed to leave this earth, would leave this earth because they're too powerful to be killed by anybody. They can only be killed by each other. I thought I had to kill them. So this curse has come as a blessing. Thank you. Right? But, he says, you cannot blame me for this war. You cannot blame me for the loss of your children. I had come and I had asked for peace. I had asked for you all to stop Duryodhana. You guys didn't stop him. You never controlled him. Even in the last moment, You had a chance and you didn't. This destruction is not because of me, it is on you. 100% on you. Dhritarashtra could have said, even while the war was going on, Dhritarashtra could have said stop. He was the only one who could have said stop. But he didn't. You didn't control Duryodhana. This is on you, don't put it on me. And she realizes the truth of his words and she keeps quiet. Now Kunti looks also at the field and she sees Karna, who is her son, that only she knows, Bhagavan Krishna knows that Karna is her son. Nobody else over there knows. He was born before she was married, and so she had put him in a box and sent him down the Ganga river, and he was brought up by another set of parents. And so now the final rites of all of these warriors are being done. One by one, the final rites, so many warriors have been killed. Everyone is doing whatever as per protocol should be done. They're offering Shraddha and all of that. And Kunti now sees that there's nobody who's offering anything for Karna. And she feels heartbroken about all the injustices she's done to him as her son. And she looks at Bhagavan Krishna and she finds the courage and she tells Yudhishthira that you need to make offerings for this Karna as well. And Yudhishthira looks at her and he says, but why? He's the son of a charioteer. Why should I? And she says, no. He's the son. He's actually a kshatriya. He's actually a warrior. And she tells how he was born to a princess before she was married. And she explains how he was put in a box and sent down the river and brought up by this other family. And she tells about the curses that he got. And they're looking at her and saying, but how do you know? And she says, because I am his mother. And Yudhishthira gets so angry. He says, I insulted my brother? Arjuna killed our brother? We said all those things to him, and he was our older brother, and he knew he was our brother? Yudhishthira was so pained by this fact. And at that time, he cursed Kunti. Actually, he didn't curse Kunti. He cursed and he said, from today, no woman will ever be able to keep a secret. Because Kunti had kept that secret so well, he said, from now no woman will be able to keep a secret. So when a woman can't keep a secret, you remember Yudhishthira's words. Anyway, so that is how that really sad scene comes to an end. And next comes the Shanti Parva. Shanti Parva is the section Mahabharata where they try to get over the massacre that was this war. The entire family was killed on both sides. Pandavas, Kauravas, so many lives were lost in this war. And everybody is sad. I mean, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra have lost 100 of their sons, their son-in-law, and Kunti has lost Karna, Draupadi has lost her 5 sons, Abhimanyu has died. On both sides, there have been tragic losses. And so, how is it that they're going to move forward and make peace with this devastation that has happened? So what they did is they didn't go to the kingdom. They spent 1 month in tapas. 1 month they spent grieving. They spent 1 month with rishis, munis, in satsang, trying to regain their balance. And this is actually, it's part of our tradition, isn't it? That when somebody dies, you stop life as it is, regular routine, and you take 12-13 days to mourn the person who has died. And the time is given there because it allows the people who are there to to psychologically process the loss that has happened. After the Antyeshti Samskara is done, after that final cremation is done, the remaining 12-13 days of that ritual is not for the person who has departed. It is for the people who are still alive to come to terms with their loss. And the way we get over loss and the way we come to terms with the reality of a new life like that is only through study of scriptures. The knowledge of scriptures is the only thing that can give us peace at that time. Spiritual practices is the only thing that can give us peace at that time. And when it is done as a family, it is very, very healing. So this kind of thing is not, nowadays people, they're like, oh, I don't have time, I have to go back to work, I have to do this, I have to do that. But it is a very essential part of the tradition that is meant to allow us to recuperate from the loss that is a natural part of life, And so this healing process is done as a family. And Yudhishthira, he's still just so miserable. He doesn't want to face life. He feels like this whole thing has happened because of him. And Naraji comes and consoles him, and he explains to him that it was not his fault. He shouldn't blame himself. And more than that, he's supposed to be king. He's supposed to rule this kingdom. It's his swadharma to rule this kingdom. And a king cannot have personal grief. A king cannot put his grief over his responsibility to his citizens. So he says, cast off this grief, take up your responsibility, go be the noble great king that you're destined to be for the welfare of the people. And at this time, Bhagavan Sri Krishna tells Yudhishthira, Bhishma, your grandfather, he's lying on the battlefield still, full of arrows. He's waiting for the right time to die, but he's full of a wealth of knowledge on how to rule a kingdom. He's the one who actually has ruled, even though just not sitting on the throne, but really on paper, if you see, in practicality, he's the one who has done all the ruling. He's the one with the most experience. Go speak to him. Let him teach you. But Yudhishthira is not ready to face Bhishma. He just feels so bad, so he doesn't. He doesn't go to Bhishma. So now they go back to Hastinapur in a grand procession. Yudhishthira is coronated as king, and the description is there in the Mahabharata of how they all sit on their thrones and how grand they look and how everybody is so happy to see them back. And then at that time, Yudhishthira, because he's such a good leader, he assigns responsibilities to Bhishma, to Arjuna, to everybody. And one of Dhritarashtra's sons, who was the half-brother of Duryodhana, his name is Yuyutsu, he was the one Kaurava who was alive. And he also was given responsibilities to manage part of the kingdom and like that. And in spite of everything that Dhritarashtra and Gandhari had done, all the injustices that they had committed, Yudhishthira treated them more than just like his parents. He saw no difference between Dhritarashtra and his father Pandu. He treated Dhritarashtra and Gandhari so well that they had not been treated with such nobility by their own sons while their sons were alive. Such wonderful treatment he gave. And he told everybody, Dhritarashtra is still the king, I am his servant. He didn't take that position away from Dhritarashtra. He also said to everybody, no one is allowed to speak ill against them. No one is allowed to say anything against Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. And remember, the amount of injustices that were, someone does one thing to you and you know how you feel like you can never forgive them. Injustice after injustice. And not only did Yudhishthira forgive them, but he said nobody should ever say anything against them. And at this point you see how actually Yudhishthira is nothing but an image of Bhagavan Sri Rama himself. Yudhishthira sounds like and rules just like our Bhagavan Sri Rama. So great. Anyways, now one day Yudhishthira goes to Bhagavan Sri Krishna and he sees Bhagavan Sri Krishna deep in thought. And he says to Krishna, what are you thinking? And Bhagavan Krishna says, I am thinking about Bhishma Pitamaha. I cannot stop thinking about him. I feel like his end is coming. And if he dies before he imparts all of his knowledge, a wealth of knowledge is going to die when he dies. So at this time he tells Yudhishthira what a great person Bhishma was. Sometimes the elders in our family, we don't know who they are really, the sacrifices that they've made, the knowledge that they have, their background, where they've come from. Oh, during our summer camp in July in Monrepo, we were asking the children questions. We were talking about gratitude to ancestors. Do you know these children did not know what indentured laborship was? Children of indentured laborers did not know what indentured laborship was and what their great-grandparents had gone through. Means in your own family you can live and have no idea of the sacrifices of the previous generations. And so at this time, Bhagavan Krishna tells Yudhishthira who really Bhishma was, what a great person he was, who all of his gurus were, how he had divine gurus, how he's the son of Ganga, how he was destined to be the ruler of this kingdom, and the sacrifices that he made. And he says, I want you to go to him and I want him to teach you. And so now Yudhishthira finally gathers courage and they go. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna says to Bhishma that I want you to teach Yudhishthira everything about ruling the kingdom. I want you to teach him about dharma. I want you to tell him all of your knowledge. And Bhishma looks at Bhagavan Krishna and he says, Bhagavan, but how can I teach him when you are here? Like, how can the student speak in front of the guru? I can't speak in front of you. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, no, I want you to be the one to do this. I want your glory to shine. I want everyone to know how great you were. And Bhishma says, but the pain from all of these arrows in my body is too much. My mind is in so much pain. My memory is clouded. I can't even remember my knowledge anymore. And Bhagavan gives him a boon that from now until the day you leave this body, you're not going to have any pain and your memory is going to come back to you just like you just got all of the knowledge. And with Bhagavan's blessings, all of Bhishma's pain goes away and he tells Yudhishthira, you come tomorrow and we're going to start. And so the next morning now, Yudhishthira comes and Bhishma starts to teach him. Yudhishthira asks questions and Bhishma answers. And in a big, huge, long dialogue between the two of them, Bhishma teaches Yudhishthira everything about what it means to be a good king, how to choose ministers, what the qualities of a king should be, what the responsibilities of the family of the king should be. Every single possible thing about ruling a kingdom from all points of view, he teaches Yudhishthira. If anybody is in politics, anyone is interested in politics or in economics, this section should be studied. It's super section on that. He asks Bhishma about dharma, about the 4 varnas, about the 4 ashramas, and Bhishma is teaching him everything that he knows. Finally, he asks, who is the one in this world who is worthy of worship? And at that time, Bhishma tells him how Bhagavan is the most valuable thing that a person can have in their life. And it is at this time that he gives him the famous Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram. He tells Yudhishthira the 1,000 names of Bhagavan Vishnu. And like this, having answered all of Yudhishthira's questions, now he is pleased, Bhagavan Krishna is pleased, Yudhishthira is pleased, and then Bhishma says, now it is my time to go, because he sees that the sun has changed its direction, it's moving in the northern direction, and he says, now I am ready to drop this body of mine. Bhishma had a choice of when he would die. He was given that boon, and he said, now it is time for me to go. And so he says to Bhagavan Krishna, I want to go seeing your Virat Roop. I want your Virat Roop darshan. And Bhagavan Krishna gives him his Virat Roop darshan. Imagine someone saying to Bhagavan, you give me this form, I want to see this form of yours when I die. And Bhagavan obliges. How noble, how powerful this Bhishma must have been for Bhagavan to grace him with that. And seeing Bhagavan's Virat Roop, Bhishma says, I am ready to die. And he drops this body, and as his body leaves, as he leaves this body, you can see like a glow of light going towards Svarga. And this is how this great Bhishma story ends. Now we enter the Ashvamedha Parva. In this section, well, one day Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Arjuna are hanging out. And Arjuna says to Bhagavan Krishna, you know, on the battlefield just before the war started, you had told me that great Bhagavad Gita. Well, you know, I didn't have my book, I didn't write any notes, and I've forgotten what you said. Can you tell me again, please? And Bhagavan Bhagavan Krishna looks at Arjuna and he says, a masterpiece can only be given one time. I told that in inspiration. I cannot tell you that again. It's not like, I'm sitting here to just tell Gita over and over again. And he says, so I cannot tell you Bhagavad Gita again. But I will give you a summary. And so he gives him a summary, and that summary of Gita in Mahabharata is what is known as Anugita. It is another wonderful gem that comes in the Mahabharata. Okay. So now Bhagavan Krishna seeks permission to go back to Dwarka, and with great pain they allow him to go back. And then Naraji sees that Yudhishthira is still down in the dumps. He just cannot get over all the loss of all of the family members and how this war happened because of him, and he's really sad. And so Naraji comes to him and says, I think you should do the Ashwamedha Yajna. It is a yajna that allows a king to establish monarchy, right? It shows how he's a very powerful king. And so to arrange this Ashwamedha Yajna, a lot of work has to be done, a lot of wealth has to be gotten, and so all of them get busy in organizing this Ashwamedha Yajna. And now that they're in the midst of organizing it, and they're experiencing the joy of being leaders and rulers, they forget their pain and they do this Ashwamedha Yajna, and finally everyone is really happy. And as they're preparing for this Ashwamedha Yajna, Bhagavan Krishna actually goes to Hastinapur earlier because he knows time is coming for Uttara's baby to be born. Remember the baby who was cursed to die by Ashwathama? Bhagavan Krishna goes. And true enough, this baby is born like a stillborn. And everybody is heartbroken because he's the only heir to the throne. He's the only grandson of the Pandavas. And he is born lifeless. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, I haven't forgotten my promise. And he takes this lifeless baby, and it is described how he's sweating, and you can see all of his energy leaves him and goes into this child, and this lifeless baby now gets life infused by Bhagavan Shri Krishna himself, like a miracle, and this baby starts to cry. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna is just exhausted after what he has done, and he sits there to rejuvenate himself and all of that. And anyways, like this, the lineage did not break because of Bhagavan Shri Krishna's grace. Now, the Pandavas come back, and you can imagine, no matter how sad things are, when a baby is born in a family, it just brings a level of joy that cannot be described or matched by anything else, right? A baby is born, it just brings a different type of joy. And so Yudhishthira is overjoyed. All the Pandavas are overjoyed to see their grandson, and they just, happiness comes back to their life again. Now, Ashrama Vasika Parva comes next. The end of Mahabharata, the chapters come very quickly, they go by. Now, after about 15 years of Yudhishthira's rule, and everyone was very happy. And Yudhishthira had made sure that no one insults Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. They were very well taken care of. And at this point, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari come to Yudhishthira, and they say to him, it is time for us to go to the forest. In our tradition, we have a wonderful thing. We don't get married and then live family life and live in our house forever. We're supposed to follow a trajectory of having lived Grihastha life for a certain amount of time. We're supposed to think about the next phase of our life where we retire, we go into Vanaprastha, and then eventually to Sannyasa. This is the life of every Hindu, supposed to be the life of every Hindu, right? And because in our tradition, old age is not supposed to be something that comes to us unexpectedly. One day we're like, oh my God, I'm old and sick and I don't know what to do. And death is also not something that comes to us unexpectedly. We're not scared of death in our tradition. We prepare for death. So how we prepare for it? We say, okay, I have lived my life, I have done my duties, my responsibilities. Now this next stage of my life, I have to live it in such a way that I try to grow spiritually. I do tapas to atone for all the wrongs that I have done while I was living. I try to live the rest of my life knowing that when death comes, I should be ready for death, it shouldn't be painful for me to leave this world, means I should go beyond my attachments before Yamaraj comes and pulls me from this world. Have you seen when you take a child to somebody's house or you bring them to the mandir, and then a child might come up here and they might pick up a bell or something and they're ringing it, and then everyone's like, oh, nice or whatever. But when time to go home, the child has to leave the bell and go home. They can't take the bell home, correct? Now you tell me, which is better? A child that you tell give the bell back and they give it back, or a child from whose hand you have to force the bell out and they're crying and holding on, they don't want to leave? Or the one who gives it easily, isn't it? Now in the exact same way, when Yamaraj comes and is ready to take us and we're supposed to leave this body, are we going to leave it holding on and crying and saying, I don't want to go, I'm not ready to go, I'm not ready to go? Or are we going to say, yes Yamaraj, I'm ready, come. I'm ready to drop the attachments that I have. Like this, we are supposed to prepare for death, which is inevitable. Do we not prepare? We say, well, when I grow older, I'm going to need to have money to take care of myself and this and that. Why do we not prepare for death? So in Sanatana Dharma, it is part of our tradition. And so Dhritarashtra and Gandhari said, no, we're going to the forest, we have to do tapas, we have to atone for all the wrongs we have done, we need to grow spiritually, and it is part of the tradition. And Yudhishthira, with heavy heart, he agrees for them to go. Sanjaya goes along with them, Vidurji goes along with them, all the elders that are remaining go along with them, and Kunti Ma, their mother, also says, I am going. They are too heartbroken to see them go. Their mother is going. She's the one who has been their rock. But they're encouraged to allow them to go. And so now the elders set off to go to the forest. One day, the Pandavas decide to go visit them in the forest. And so they see them living very, very simple lives, eating very little, sleeping on the ground, wearing, tapasvi clothing, and they spend some time with them. And at that time, Yudhishthira says, well, where is Vidurji? And they say, Vidurji is doing such intense tapas, he's not even eating. And he's deep in the forest. So Yudhishthira goes to look for Vidurji. And he sees someone who is almost just skin and bones. No strength in his body. But there's a brilliance in his eyes. And Yudhishthira looks at him. And for a few moments, the two eyes lock. The two eyes of Yudhishthira and two eyes of Vidurji, they lock together, and it's as though Vidurji leaves his body and enters into Yudhishthira's body. And suddenly Yudhishthira feels like he has all the knowledge that Vidurji had. And now he's thinking he's going to pick up this body of Vidurji to cremate it. And a voice comes from the Akash Vani comes and says, it is Dharmaraj who says, no. Vidurji is now a part of you. There's nothing you need to do with his body, leave it right there. And so he goes back and he tells everybody what happened. At this point, Veda Vyasaji also comes. And he says to Dhritarashtra, you have done so much tapas that now you have done so much tapas, I want to give you a boon. Ask for something. And Dhritarashtra says, no matter how much we have done and we're trying to get over what has happened, we just cannot actually get over the fact that our sons are gone. I want to see them one more time. Everybody who died in the war, I want to see them just one more time. And so Veda Vyasaji says, okay, with my power, tonight I will bring them all back to see. You will be able to see all of them at night time. And so everyone is waiting for night. And at night, Veda Vyasaji goes into the river and he does what he has to do, and he uses his power, and with this intense power that he has, he invokes all of the people who died in the war to come back to earth from whichever realms they are in. And they come in the armor that they wore when they went to war. And everybody is so happy to meet each other. The Dhritarashtra and Gandhari meet their 100 sons. Dhritarashtra is given the blessing to see them for a few minutes. Kunti meets Karna, Draupadi meets her sons, Abhimanyu meets Subhadra and Arjuna. I'm calling names. If you know the names, then you know who's meeting who. But just know all the families with great joy met each other. And actually the biggest and most important thing in this meeting was that they realized that everybody was happy where they were, and everybody was exactly where they ought to have been. And then Vedavyasaji says, now enough, everyone has to go. And he asks all the women who are there, whoever wants to join their husbands and go, they're welcome to go with them. And whoever wants to go, they all go back to the realms that they came from. And this is very instructive for us, because when somebody dies, we feel very sad. We feel like they shouldn't have died, especially if someone dies younger. Older people, it's easier. But this scene that comes in the Mahabharata is a reminder to us that we think people may be suffering, we think it is a sad thing, but actually they have gone exactly where they were supposed to have gone. They are exactly where they're supposed to be. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. So now, we don't have Veda Vyasaji to bring back the people we love from dead, to come and meet us for one more day, but we can remember this message, that wherever they are is exactly where they are meant to be, and we should feel joy in our heart that they're on their journey exactly where they're supposed to be. And so this is how it happens. Everyone was just playing their part. Now they go back to their kingdom, and Kunti Ma says to them, this may be the last time that we meet, and she gives them her great blessings, and they go back to the kingdom. Now after a while, maybe a couple of years pass, and Naraji comes to the kingdom, and Yudhishthira looks at him and he says, uh-oh, because when Naraji comes, is either something wonderful or something terrible. and Yudhishthira says, Naraji, Hari Om, means he welcomes him, he says, what can I do? What are you here for? Is everything okay? And Naraji says, actually I have come with news. There was a forest fire in the forest, and Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Kunti, all of them that were there, they were doing such intense tapas that while the forest fire came, they were too exhausted to move, and they surrendered to the fire, and they gave up their lives in that fire. It's like the fire of their tapas that had come. And so they're all gone. Your elders are all gone now. And Yudhishthira, well, he's heartbroken again. And he says, now there's nothing to live for except Bhagavan Krishna. I mean, what else is there? Now we shift to Bhagavan Shri Krishna in Dwarka. Interesting story. I don't know, you all might know this story, but there were a couple of pranksters. People prank each other all the time. Couple of pranksters in the family of Bhagavan Krishna, and they dressed one man as a woman, and they made as if this man was pregnant, and they went to some rishis and they said, please, with your foresight, tell us if this is going to be a boy or a girl. And the rishis got angry and they cursed. I don't know, these curses, when you have power. Anyways, the rishi said, you know what, this person is going to give birth, but they're going to give birth to an iron rod, and this iron rod is going to destroy the entire family. And really the next day, I don't know, somehow an iron rod was born. And this iron rod, they were scared, so they pulverized it into powder, and they went and they threw it into the river. And they thought that was the end of it. Now it so happens that 36 years later, all bad omens started to come in Dwarka. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna realized that the curse of Gandhari was about to come true. And so he said to everybody, he said, let's go to Prabhasa, the banks of Prabhasa. It is an auspicious place. We'll go and spend some time over there. They went there. And because adharma was so rampant everywhere now, and so many things, one day in a drunken brawl, everybody was hanging out, and they got drunk, and they started to fight with each other. And remember, some of the Kauravas were fighting, a lot of Bhagavan Krishna's army and family was fighting on the side of the Kauravas. And Satyaki, one of his cousins, was on the side of the Pandavas. And so now they started to talk about what happened in the war. He said, you killed this person unjustly, and you did this thing wrong, and they're fighting with each other. But do you remember you did this? And then one of them says, just like you killed this person, I'm going to kill you. And he takes out his sword and he chops off his head. And disaster starts happening. They start to fight each other and attack each other. And then they go and they pick some weeds from the bank of the river and they start to strangle each other with those weeds. It so happens that those weeds were the iron rod that had been powdered. When it had gone into the river, it entered into these plants. And it was with these plants that as it touched all of these Vrishnis, they were all dying one by one. And Bhagavan watched his entire family kill each other. He was destined. Prarabdha, the curse had to come true. They had to leave. Their life on this earth was over. Their purpose was finished. And at this time, Bhagavan Shri Krishna thinks in his mind, I wish I could meet Arjuna one more time. And so he actually goes to meet Arjuna in his dream. And he says to Arjuna, remember I told you that everything has a purpose, and when the purpose is done, it goes? And without telling Arjuna, basically, he tells Arjuna that now it is time for me to go, and it is time for you all to go. And so Bhagavan Shri Krishna sends his charioteer to Arjuna and tells him, go and tell Arjuna to come and take all the women and the elders from here to Hastinapur. Let him come and take care of them. And Bhagavan Krishna sits and Balaram sits, and Balaramji is Sheshnag, remember? And so it's described that a white serpent comes out of Balaramji and enters the river, and Balaramji leaves this earth in that way. Now Bhagavan Shri Krishna is thinking about himself, how he is going to leave this earth, because if he has taken human form, he has to live like a human. He cannot just go magically, but nobody can kill him. Now Durvasa Rishi had given him a boon that his entire body would be invincible, except for his soles of his feet were remaining. So one day Krishna is lying just resting against a tree, and he had a silk cloth wrapped around him, a yellow one, and a hunter was passing and thought it was a deer. And he took an arrow and he shot, and it went into the sole of Bhagavan Shri Krishna's foot. And it so happened that that arrow, the head of that arrow was made from a piece of the iron rod that was remaining. And like that, Bhagavan Shri Krishna also left this body and went back to his world. So now Bhagavan Krishna had departed. Arjuna came, and you can imagine how miserable Arjuna was. Anyways, he took all of the women, just like Bhagavan Krishna said, and as they were leaving, this Dwarka became fully submerged by the sea. The sea took back Dwarka. It had given Dwarka to Krishna, it took back Dwarka. And now Arjuna is heading back to Hastinapur with all of these people. And as they're going, a bunch of robbers come to attack them because they were taking their wealth and all with them too. And Arjuna says, don't worry. He takes out his Gandiva bow, and for some reason he cannot even string this bow. He has no energy or capacity to even string the bow. So he thinks, okay, let me invoke divine astras, divine weapons. He cannot remember any of the invocations also. And these common bandits defeat them and take people away and take wealth and all. And he can't understand what happened. And that symbolism of Arjuna not being able to use his arrows is a reminder to us that actually all the power we have to do anything in this world is because of Bhagavan. And when Bhagavan is gone from Arjuna's life, Arjuna had no power remaining to do anything. It wasn't Arjuna's strength, it was Bhagavan Shri Krishna's strength the whole time. Okay, now Mahaprasthana Parva comes. Now it is time for the Pandavas to depart this world. And so Yudhishthira puts Parikshit in charge. He coronates him as king. He teaches him everything. And same Parikshit who's the protagonist in Bhagavatam, right? And so he leaves Parikshit to rule. And now the Pandavas set off for Swarga. They decide to go up to the Himalayas and go up to Swarga. They're ready to leave this world. As they are walking, Draupadi drops. She becomes lifeless. And Bhima asks, well, what happened? Why did that happen to Draupadi? And he said, they're very close, but she drops before they reach the top of the Himalayas. And Yudhishthira says it is because Draupadi, even though she was so noble, she had one fault. And her fault was that even though she was married to all five of us, she favored Arjuna the most. And so for that partiality, she has lost her life now. And as they're walking, Sahadeva drops next. And Bhima says, what about Sahadev? He says, because he had pride in his intelligence. That was his one problem. Then as they're walking, next Nakula drops. And he explains he had pride in his beauty. Then next Arjuna drops. And he said, well, Arjuna? He says, because Arjuna had pride in his capacity to fight. He had said, in one day I will fight everybody on the Kaurava side, and one day this war will be over. He undermined the power and the greatness of all the other warriors, and because of that, now Arjuna has dropped. And as they're walking, now Bhima drops. And as Bhima is dropping, he's like, what about me? and Yudhishthira says, your problem was that you had ego about your strength, in your power, and you used to eat too much. That is also not a good thing. Yudhishthira tells him this, and now Yudhishthira is going alone. Actually not alone, Yudhishthira had a dog with him that had accompanied them the whole way. Now as he's going alone, Indra Devata comes in a chariot and he says, Yudhishthira, you're so noble, you're so great that even though people are not allowed to enter Svarga with their human body, you have the rare privilege of coming with this human body itself directly to Svarga. Come with me in my chariot. And Yudhishthira says, I want to go where my brothers and my wife are. I don't want to go alone. And he says, no, they're already there, you come. And so Yudhishthira says, okay, but this dog is coming with me. And he says, dogs are not allowed in Svarga. You forget, humans are not also allowed in Svarga. We're giving you special permission to come. And he says, no, this dog has depended on me this whole time. I have to take him with me. And Indra said, but you left your brothers and your wife behind? He said, no, they became lifeless. That's why I left them behind. This dog is still alive. He's still depending on me. I'm not going to leave him. You go, I'm not coming. And at that time, that dog turns into Dharmaraj and he says, this was your test. I'm very pleased with you. And so Indra now goes on the chariot. Yudhishthira goes on the chariot now of Indra and they go to Svarga. Now when they go to Svarga, he sees Duryodhana. He says, what is Duryodhana doing here? Look how much papa he did. And Indra said, no, he died on the battlefield, and any warrior who dies on the battlefield goes to Svarga. And he looks around and he doesn't see any of his brothers. He doesn't see Draupadi. And he says, what is this? Where are they? I want to be with them. And Indra said, no, they're not here. They're somewhere else. And Yudhishthira says, I don't care where they are. That is where I want to be. He says, are you sure? He says, yes, I am sure. And so now Yudhishthira is led away from Svarga and he's going to this other place. And as they go, the beauty of Svarga starts to wane, and they start to go to this place that is smelly and putrid and like hot and all kinds of dead bodies all around, and it's like not a pleasant place to be. And Yudhishthira is like, what is this place? Where are we? And then suddenly he hears these, he can barely take the smell and the stench and the, it's not nice. And at that time, he hears these like voices talking to him. And he's about to say, I want to go back, I can't stand this. And these voices say, Yudhishthira, please don't go. Now that you're here, your presence here is making us feel better. It's easing our pain. Please stay here, please stay with us. And he says, who are you? And he says, I am Bhima. And he realizes all his brothers and his wife are there. And he says to Indra, he says, no, I'm not coming back with you. I'm going to stay right here. Indra says, are you sure? Like in this place? Yes, I'm sure. And at that time, Dharmaraj comes and he says, Yudhishthira, this was your next test. And again, I am very pleased with you. And all of that was an illusion, and all of that goes away. And again, everything becomes beautiful, and there's flowers and fragrance and peace and purity. And Yudhishthira is now finally taken back to Svarga. And he is given a divine body. And there he sees now everybody. He sees his brothers, he sees his wife, he sees Duryodhana, he sees all the sons of Dhritarashtra, he sees Karna, and everybody is happy over there. And like this, the Mahabharata comes to an end with everyone now reaching their final abode in Svarga. Oh, one other thing Indra had told, he had explained to Yudhishthira that when somebody who has done a lot of papa karma, a lot of negative things, when they die, first they go to Svarga. and they enjoy the good karma that they did. And having enjoyed the little good karma that they did, then they go to Naraka. In Hinduism, there's a difference between Hindu Swarga and Naraka and Christian heaven and hell. The words are used interchangeably. People will say you go to heaven, you go to hell, but Swarga and Naraka are not the same. The main difference is in Christianity, when you go to heaven or to hell, it is permanent. You go to heaven forever, you go to hell forever. In Hinduism, you go to these realms only temporarily. Big, huge difference. They're temporary lokas, and having finished the karma there, you go and get a next body and a next body until you become realized. You keep getting a next body, and heaven is not the destination of a Hindu. The goal of a Hindu is moksha, freedom from this body, freedom from rebirth, not heaven. Big difference between the two. That is why we try not to use the word heaven when we say swarga, because it brings the connotation of the Christian heaven, right? Anyways, Indra says to him that when a person does a lot of papa karma, first they go to swarga, they enjoy swarga, and then they go to naraka to really reap the results of all their papa. But if someone has done a lot of punya karma, then they go to naraka first, and they finish off the negative karma that they pay for the negative karma that they've done, and then they go and they enjoy swarga. And he said, you did only one papa in your life. When you did only one thing in your life, and that is you told one lie. Yes, you did it for dharma, but it was still a lie. One thing you did, you told a lie, and those few moments that you spent in naraka was for that, and now you're good to go. And that is the explanation for how that all happened to Yudhishthira. So this Mahabharata ends, and it is a reminder to us that yato dharma tato jaya. Where there is dharma, there is victory. Whether it may not look like it in the short run, but in the long run, there is always victory. The other thing that it teaches us, a couple more things. I'll tell these last couple things and then we'll end. We have to stand up for what is right. Even if nobody is standing up for what is right, we cannot not stand up by saying, oh well, everyone else is quiet. Draupadi was the only one who stood up against every single person and said, what you all are doing is wrong. At one point. She stood up alone. So even if we're the only one, we have to stand up at all times for what is right, knowing we're going to be protected by dharma, we are going to be protected by Bhagavan Krishna. The other thing is, we have to remember that our elders are not always right. Unfortunately, our elders are not always right. They can make mistakes too. And the actions of the elders is what is going to determine the future of generations to come. I want to end by going back to how the Mahabharata started. There was a king called Shantanu, and he was married to Ganga Devi, and then in a tragic event, Ganga Devi left. Then he falls in love with a woman called Satyavati. Satyavati, who happens to be the grandmother of Dhritarashtra. Satyavati's father was a fisherman, and he had a condition for Shantanu to marry his daughter. He said, it is in my daughter's horoscope that her sons are going to be kings. They are going to be rulers. And you already have a son who is going to be king, so you cannot marry my daughter. And so that is when Bhishma takes the oath to not sit on the throne. Now see the irony in the whole situation. This fisherman had said his daughter's blood children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren should be the heirs of the throne of this Hastinapur. That was his condition. Who sits on the throne finally? Yudhishthira. If you trace back, biologically, Satyavati is not related to Yudhishthira by blood. Means Yudhishthira is born of Kunti and Dharmaraj. So there is no blood genetics of this fisherman with the person who ends up finally sitting on the throne. But because of his insistence that his child's child should sit on the throne, this entire drama ended up happening. If Bhishma was made king, there would have been no problem. I mean, in retrospect, you say that. But everything also has to happen as it is supposed to happen. My point in this was, we should not think as we grow that we know what is best for those around us, because we may not know. We should always surrender to a higher power. We should always seek guidance of our Bhagavan. And we should always remember that wherever there is dharma, there indeed there will be victory. And when we choose Bhagavan, we are protected by Bhagavan himself. With this wonderful epic Mahabharata is finished. Now, as I said in the beginning, it is impossible to study the entire Mahabharata, let alone in 14 days. I have barely touched the surface of this Shastra. I have not told everything. And if I have made any mistakes, because this is such a vast story and it is easy to get lost in it, I am sorry if I made any mistakes in the telling of the story. But I hope that it has inspired whoever has listened to any part of it to hold on to Dharma with such vehemence that it has no choice but to bless you in your life, and it has no choice but to bring prosperity and blessings to the entire universe. And you always remember that even though the world may say that, what is the use of, studying Gita, and what is the use of studying all this? It's not going to help me to get a job. It's not going to help me to get further in life. You remember, when a person is hiring, you tell me this, last point. When a person is hiring in a company, and they have a choice to hire somebody who is very qualified, very skilled, but arrogant and rude. And on the other hand, they have a choice to hire somebody who is not so skilled, not so trained, but willing to learn, has humility, is honest. You tell me, which one would they hire? The second one, is it not? So if you as a person in charge would choose the person who has less skill and more dharma, how can we say there is no value in studying this? How can we put secular over spiritual when really speaking, even in the economic world, we will choose spiritual over secular? It is just short-sightedness that doesn't allow us to see that. Everybody always wants to choose values over valuables. We just don't realize with our short-sightedness. So never stop studying, never stop thinking what is dharma, never stop trying to bring it into your life. And you means us, all of us. Right? Okay, we will, closing prayer or Arti? Okay, so now we will do our final Arti of this Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita Arti. Because we study Mahabharata to make Bhagavad Gita shine more gloriously. Right? So, come. जय भगवद गीते मैया जय भगवद गीते हरि कमल विहारिणि हरि कमल विहारिणि सुंदर सुपुनीते ओम जय ब्रह्म सिखावनी हरि मुख की वाणी सकल शास्त्र की स्वामिनी श्रुतियों की रानी दया सुधा बरसावनी मातु कृपा की जय हरि पद प्रेम दान कर हरि पद प्रेम दान कर अपनो कर लीजय जय भगवती मैया प्रिय कमल विहारिणी सुंदर सुपुनीते ओम जय भगवती ते मंगलम भगवान विष्णु मंगलम गरुडध्वजः मंगलम पुंडरीकाक्षं मंगलायतनो हरिः त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की जय श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय हर हर नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव हरि ओम तत्सत्।